Joe Corapi, co-founder of SAT Training. Always played soccer. I was strictly a one-sport athlete. Team Ontario Youth National Team. I ended up going on to PennState, having a very good experience there. Graduated, came home. I wanted to continue playing, but also I think the opportunities weren't necessarily there as much as I would have liked. Became heavily involved in coaching youth soccer at that point. And that kind of led me down the path of coaching, which I did for a number of years after playing as well.
And how did you start to get involved with soccer?
Tugged on my dad's shirt enough times so I could get registered with the local soccer club and just continue to get pretty competitive from there. You certainly obviously aspire to be a professional, but that certainly doesn't always work out for everybody. I don't feel like I fell short. I feel like given the skill set that I had, I feel like I maximized what I had. Again, for me, even just being able to say, hey, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I enjoy being active. I enjoy the opportunity to play at Penn State, and I have something to offer, and so I'm going to continue.
So obviously, when you go to the States, there's different things that you have to consider, and through the process of, like, obviously the expert here, SATs. And so can you just touch on a little bit about that process?
Part of it are your academics from grade 9 to grade 12, but then there's the added piece of a standardized test for the SAT test. I remember writing it twice.
Can we just talk a little bit about what that test is and what the components are of it first?
Actively being recruited, you can actually go to the different school websites and their admission departments and determine whether that specific school requires the essay component or not. But in a nutshell, the SAT test, 1600, half math, half reading and writing, multiple choice based, optional essay component. And it's a bit of a bear of a test, right?
How can you be best prepared to write the SAT?
We put together a program where we have the student athletes complete a practice test at home first. It allows the student athletes to now have experienced a test, but also see what the test content looks like, the makeup of the test looks like, the timing components required, the nature of the multiple choice questions, and so on. So they have a much better understanding of what the test is all about because they've actually seen it in a practice format. We look at it from a coaching standpoint or a student athlete preparation standpoint, right? Once the student athletes are completed our program, we like to say that they've effectively gone through 6 SAT practice tests, 1 practice test at home on their own, plus the 5 sessions. So they can sit down on the morning of the test and say, okay, I am nervous. I understand that this is a 3-hour test that's coming my way, but I've prepared for this test. I understand, I know what to expect, and so there will not be any surprises. So from that standpoint, they can feel pretty comfortable and confident.
Going into test day, what advice do you give the students?
The student athletes have no shortage of resources. There's great apps, put out by the College Board where you can get an SAT question sent per day. Always continue to do a little bit just to stay sharp and to stay a little bit refreshed as well.
So how many times can you take the test?
Yeah, there's really no limit in the sense that the universities are not looking to say, well, Joe, you scored 1,000 on your second or third attempt, and this other student athlete scored 1,000 on their first attempt, so their 1,000 is valued higher than yours. That they're just looking at the marks, they're not looking at the number of attempts. So, out of this situation of COVID, really only most familiar with running our program in class. We quickly pivoted and offered it via webinar. One of the neat indirect benefits was that the webinars are automatically recorded and we upload them. I think we're generally pretty spoiled, if you will, being in the GTA with having an abundance of services, whereas if you're in a smaller area, you may be that competitive student athlete, but now that service is not necessarily run in your backyard because there's not as many student athletes or the need is not there. So now having access and that ability to do it via webinar, it was great for those student athletes.